So how was it going back to see your family? How was it reconnecting back with your wife and your kids? How was that feeling
It was
like?
kind of interesting because when I was leaving my most senior daughter, was 13 years old.
Yes.
When I go back, she was 17.
Wow.
She had become her own self.
Yes.
She's she was just like very excited to see me, but there was still that
Yeah, of course.
period. There was still a lag, It's
Yes,
like who
yes.
is this guy type of
Yeah,
lag. My son had it harder, I think,
yeah.
because he was younger and had gone through a lot of motions. She's asking when his daddy coming back. And then when I came back, it took him a while to start using daddy. He would just come to me. He'll look at me with some kind of surprise in his eyes, walk away, because it was also at that
Wow.
point a grown man.
Mhm.
And but over time, we all got back again, and then I had to travel. Every time I had to travel, it's always like, sit down, like, so this time, when will you be back? Because coming back at this point doesn't have anything to do with your return date on your ticket.
Yeah.
It's subject to a number of situational variables.
Yeah.
And that's what have been my situation since started coming back because I had one more case that was pending when I left. So I kept coming back. So in May I was back. I think in September I was back, and I came back in October and participated in the protest. And I think that was the point at which they were looking into how to rearrest
Yeah.
me and take my passport or do whatever they wanted. Because prior to my coming back in October, in September, I realized that they had put my name again, upgraded me on the watch list of people who could not re-enter and leave the country without questioning.
So, I mean, that's conversation with your son. I mean, like it must have been difficult in the sense that having your boy grow up without you, those critical years, those 5 years, not seeing him, and you said he comes into the room, he looks at you, he leaves, he doesn't really know how to talk to you, how to connect with you. But what did you tell him to reassure him or to be that dad that was absent for that five
So there was
years?
nothing to really tell him, but we started like going out. So I'll
Yeah,
drive him to soccer.
nice.
Yeah, he's a soccer player.
Yeah,
And I'll drive them to school and we would talk on the way. I would try to say things to him that, it's just basically what men would say to men. So we used to have men to men talk.
yeah,
And I liked that a lot.
yeah,
When I would tease him about, how's school? It's like, school is good, which courses or subjects you like the best, And one day I came to him and said, how about the girls? He was like, no, daddy, I don't have any girls. I don't have any girls, but I saw that it was exciting to him.
of course,
So
yes.
I would tease him on those
Yeah,
areas once in a while, and then sometimes we would of course fight.
yeah,
Maybe it's like when they're reluctant to do stuff, I'll try to step in as a dad.
yeah,
But on more of a diplomatic side, because now I'm the offender who has been gone,
yes.
and I don't want to come and be imposing myself on them to say, hey, do this, do that, because
Yeah,
I haven't been there when I also have been around. So, well, on a balance, we started like jiving again and
nice.
reconnecting, and we engaged a few times. And then we started talking about serious things, like I'll talk about religion, and then he'll ask me questions about, so how does it feel like, to be in detention? Did you read? And I was like, yeah, 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 yeah. So, but I realized he doesn't want to talk about things that are too hard.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's his own way of just evaluating that, these are not the topics for conversation. But I'm just happy my dad is back,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna enjoy it. So.
Okay. How about your daughter? How was that period of reconnection?
That lady was the most accepting. Yes, she acted as if I didn't go anywhere.
Daughters and fathers, right?
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
like, so that is so. I wanted to just drop me off somewhere, I used to say to her, like, I'm not your Uber driver. It's like, hey, she's like, she was very smooth, and she also like the singer, so she likes
Nice.
when I come with her to her singing
Wow.
events, and so we'll talk about it. And she plays soccer as well, but not on the kind of level that my son plays soccer.
Yeah.
And then, of course, on Sundays we argue about going to school, and it's like, I hope you guys leave me alone.
Yeah.
So that's that. But she was just like very upfront. She pretended like I just went on vacation and I came back. So
A long vacation.
yes,
Yeah.
but I realized something, that they have all had their own individual lives set out, and I try also, like I mentioned earlier, not to infringe on their privacies. I don't really want to know what they're doing beyond what I should know.
Yeah.
Because I always think about it, like I kind of knew who I wanted to become when I was 9 years old, 10 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, but I couldn't express it to my dad.
Wow.
Because he'll kill me.
Yeah. I mean that shift in mentality, knowing what you wanted to become at 9 years old and seeing your kids growing up. Do you kind of feel like not being in their lives for 5 years? And I mean, it's not your fault at all.
Yeah.
It's the fault of the states, the federal government, that kept your passport from you and kept you from seeing your family. So that has nothing to do with you. Regardless, you're still gonna want to fulfill your dreams, which is what you've been doing. Your purpose in life is what you're really doing. So, but that shift in mentality, like, do you feel like that absence for 5 years, that gap, do you feel like you would have impacted that belief or that goal into them? That at that young age, they too also would have been able to figure out, okay, I want to be doing this when I'm so age, just like yourself.
No, I have no excuses. I think parents are important in the life of their kids. Maybe the only thing I saw that made it a little less harder for them was technology.
Yes.
Because I'm able to like talk to them,
Yeah.
video chat, and when their mom sometimes will have hard times with them, I can step in and say, hey, this daddy talking, but I don't think there's a replacement anywhere for the presence of a father or a mom.
Yeah.
But mentally, we just look at it and say, hey, you've been on a mission, and you just hope that your family members are not collateral damage or damages to that mission.
Yeah.
Or, so that's the way I process it. But I'm yet to completely understand how they process it. I think also, to my wife's credit, she is a very strong woman or person, and she really covered up for me very well. So in that regard, like I said, I don't want to philosophize on what my absence of presence would have done in their lives.
Yeah.
But in a way, personally, I do not interfere with. I knew that long time ago, even when I wasn't a father, that parents just can't barge into their kids' lives. I hated it when my father was doing it.
Yeah.
My father always wanted me to be somebody different, become a lawyer, doctor, accountant. I knew I don't want to be a professional in those areas, that my life would be boring. But I couldn't tell him. But they could tell me what they want to be.
Yeah.
So they can always say, hey, yes, I'm going to school, but I don't want to be a doctor. And it's all right. But you couldn't tell my dad that you don't want to be what he wants you to be. That was an abomination.
Yeah, anathema.
You couldn't have those conversations. So they could ask me to shut up.
Yeah.
And I'll be fine with it. If you told my dad to shut up, he'll flip out.
Of course, yeah.
He'll call a family meeting and say, I've never had it before. And maybe next thing they'll just pick you up and sacrifice you.
Yeah, different generations.
Yeah. So I understood that they come from a generation that is substantially different from mine.
100%,
and in two ways. One is that it was like I was a generation who rode on donkeys. and their generation on fighter jets. So in some ways, when I thought about how I grew up, my children can't relate
Yeah.
with how I grew up. They've only been to my village twice.
Yeah.
And when we went, my son couldn't deal with flies. It was just like, Daddy, what's all these bugs, from where are they from?
Yeah.
My daughter liked it, but for as long as it was fun, which
Yeah.
is, if you wanted to sleep in the village, like, no, please, we have to go.
Yeah.
Second time was almost the same way. But when my dad talked to me about growing up, I could relate because there wasn't much of a difference maybe just a little bit of difference between the way they grew up. It's just hewing wood, cutting out, doing all kinds of menial jobs and going to school at the late period. But the difference was that I could go to school early in life. I finished secondary school at the age of 14.
Wow.
First time. And I had to go back for 2 years because I was too young, and my dad forced me back to class 4, and I did one more year and then wrote WIAC and did better.
Yeah.
That's why if you see my first WIAC result, which I posted, and the later one, the difference was clear. Yes.
Yeah. You mentioned your wife, your kid's mom. I mean, yes, you said she's a strong woman, but no matter what, it must have been difficult for her. I mean, you reconnecting back with her, how was it? How did it feel like? Was she understanding? How was that process of 5 years after meeting her again?
I don't know that anybody, I don't even think Winnie Mandela understood why Mandela did what, if you have private space, because there are a lot of emotions that goes in the mind of a woman whose husband is away. And I can't count how many, but I know that what she worried most about was if I would come back alive. Because every morning she has heard either directly or indirectly from somebody that the police had beaten me up or roughened me up, I'd been shot at, somebody threw out a dagger to stab me. So that must be hard for her. And I was saying that if we were to exchange places, I probably would have been more worried than she was. So, but I think her primary issue was having me back alive. And when I came back alive, she was very happy about that. But you know how it is. Your wife can tolerate you to be on vacation for a long time, but the moment you arrive, work starts.
Exactly.
It's like, hey, go back. But I must admit that she showed, extraordinary courage, strength, and understanding. Because, as I've always said about my kind of life, sometimes I even think it's unfair for people like me to get married, because I kind of knew that I came into this world to live a life of uncertainty, and marriage requires a lot of stability and certainty. And, marriage is like statistics. It has a mean, median, and mode. And so, and in between mood.
Yeah. I mean, probably you must have made it up with her by taking on several dates and making up the.
So I have to admit, I didn't do well in those. She wanted more. When I arrived, it's like, can we go do this? Can we go do that?
Of course.
But then she realized that, I was the guy that left.
Yeah.
And came back the same way, so I don't want to reveal my personal flaws and weaknesses. Maybe when you get to interview her, she'll tell you that. But I couldn't do everything she wanted.
Of course,
I was around. First thing she did was to take us on a vacation.
Of course,
to Barbados. So we went, and and she was like, "So, we're gonna play with your kids. So go and talk to your kids." So, and I started. It was like ABC of fatherhood again. And as an African who's been gone for 4 years, my accent was a little bit clumsy. So I had to talk to my kids, and I was like, what did you just say? Like, yes, I just said this to you.
Yeah.
Let me break it down. well, I want you to go and bring me water.
Yeah.
You mean water? Yeah, I said, whichever one it is, it is.
Yeah.
That's on the lighter side of it.
Yeah.
But women, I would admit that I don't have anything close to the kind of strength, the expectation of the kind of strength she showed.
Yeah.
And the restraint she showed when I came back, just knowing that, I'm probably on the mend, So,
someone that has been to jail for years and came back, you need to
but I was explaining to her, please don't treat me like Nelson Mandela, because I am not ready for divorce.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's amazing, because the reason why I wanted to begin with this set of questions was sometimes we feel when we see people like yourself, right? People tend to forget the personal side of people, someone like Sowore, for example.
Yeah.
And people tend to forget that you're a man that has a wife, you're a man that has two beautiful, loving kids that love you and miss you.
That I know of.
That you, who knows, there could be more, right?
Exactly.
But at least, people tend to forget that, and people say lots of nonsense online. I'm like, this guy is also someone that has people that love him. And I hope that from our conversation, that people get to see this side of you that they can relate to as well, because I think it's important for public figures like yourself, not just to be known for the activism.
So the point, and I'm not trying to shut you up.
Yeah.
The point that I don't worry about, I haven't worried about in a long time, is that side of me that is lovable by everybody, because it doesn't stay for too long. So if you're liking me for a period, before you finish watching the show, I've done something wrong to you. And that's where you get that remarks that I used to respect you a lot until you said this thing that you shouldn't have said, or you behaved this way and all that. So I'm actually not trying to fit into, the expectation
of anybody,
of anyone. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to fit into a box.
Yeah.
Because even I can't guarantee that I will be able to please anybody for a prolonged period of time.
Of course.
Otherwise, I would have been born on ice cream to make people happy.